Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop. Uncomfortably nestled betwixt the insidious overarching terror of thermonuclear holocaust and the insipid over-optimism of jumping in your flying car to go to the Salton Sea, what for smoking Chesterfields on your days off, lies this lovely artifact of retrofuturism. Behold, a beautiful piece of machinery, the Fury 1/4 inch, made in Sheffield, England, Jacob's Chuck drill made by Ram Tools Limited. I know nothing about this brand, so down the gargler rabbit hole we go. And of course, those of you in the canoe will recognize Vintage Machinery, of course, Keith Rucker's YouTube internet repository of fantastic long format videos about machining. And on occasion, I'm known to enjoy a longer format Rhodesian reach around, kind of southern drawl, draw it out type video, which he makes. In addition, and as a corollary to his YouTube videos, he's also got set together, probably with some buddies here, a Vintage Machinery repository, what with the words. And if you look up Ram Tools, February 1959, Popular Mechanics had that tool in it. So we'll go on the gargler again, just to go into Google Books. Sure enough, look at this, 1959, 300 pages nearly of this Popular Mechanics. That was a hell of a, and this was back in the glory days of Popular Mechanics. Now, of course, it's all just commercials and wank. But back then, it actually had some useful information. One of our best values, 2.9 amp heavy duty 1/4 inch ram drill. Jacob's geared chuck and key, $15. Of course, if we check that in 1959, that's 122 bucks. That's what it cost you. Essentially, the buying power of 122 bucks. So that's not teabag. Now, if we go ahead and look here, the whole article. There's a Black & Decker Pecker Wrecker, Miller Falls, Porter Powercraft, Pioneer, Portable Electric, Sears Roebuck, Craftsman. All of these have gone, well, except for Black & Decker Pecker Wrecker, all of these have gone down. And the Will Fuck Ye, still in biznatch. Stanley, of course, still in biznatch. But look at this. This was a power unit. That drill, a little tiny portable drill, was a power unit for all sorts of tools. Bench table saw, grinder, a drill press, a disc sander, band saw, circ saw, saber saw, a sander. Look at that belt sander. Incredible. Hedge trimmers, angle drilling head, wow, screwdriver, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, these of course are all standalone tools now, but back in yonder year, apparently you could get all these. I wonder how well that would work. It'd be interesting to get my hands on something like that. And this is the beauty of the old school magazines. You don't get this anymore. You get editor's choice, but you don't get any. Yeah, look at this. It'll run 1/4 inch in steel, 1/2 inch in wood, no load. It doesn't. They never tell you the full load speed. 1200 ripams. 3.5 pounds and 9 inches long. Bearings, 8 bearings. Oh, all ball bearings. And ball thrust bearing on spindle, self-lubricated bronze bearing. Okay. So this would indicate to me that it's a good one. Well, as they say in the trades, pitter patter, let's get at her. We'll rip her apart and see what magic she contains. Now this has a chuck, a Jacob's chuck, that was made in Sheffield, England. Sheffield, of course, used to be famous for steel and iron works. However, I think that's pretty much gone by the wayside, other than a few likely woodworking tools, chisels and whatnot. Well, that chuck's not the best. But remember the old record vices that were actually still made in Sheffield, England? Then Irwin bought them, of course, moved it all to China. But Sheffield, England, blast from the past, that. Focus, you fuck! Now we're gonna disrobe this beauty. Amazing surmounting in actual metal, and this was either magnesium or aluminum. We'll check later on, but this would have been die cast and then polished in another process, because even if this was die cast perfectly in a smooth, perfect mold, you would still see the grain structure as it solidified. So you'd have to sand that progressively until you eventually buffed it right up. I mean, look at the finish on that. Looks like some sort of rocket ship to Mars. And juxtapose this aesthetic with its modern day analog. This is essentially a plastic transformer toy for boys that grew up. I mean, look at the thing. It looks like a toy. I hope at some point we get away from this look and go back to a more classic look. But yeah, here we are. It's a bright, shiny toy. Vroom, vroom. Having said that, however, as far as ergonometry, I mean, this is just pretty horrific. I mean, as the old farts tell me, you gotta piss with the cock you got. We're almost in, and there is some serious spring-a-thing, and so keep your safety squints down and your eyes peeled on account of some spring-a-thing in here. Oh, come on. There we go. Ugh. So what was spring-a-thing? Oh, look at that. That's an interesting feature right there. Yeah, you see, if they didn't polish the outside, this is what it would look like. The grease is oxidized or lost all of its solvent, so it's mainly a paste. There is some fluid here, but I believe that's from trying to free up this chuck that was seized. Well, the reason I say that is because there's clearly some schmoo in there, and it feels like it was seized. Real nasty spots there. So somebody had been working at that. I don't see any foundry marks on the top side of the clamshell. So we're just going to rough this up, and then we'll put a little vinegar on there, some acid, and see what the reaction is. If it's fairly vigorous, we know that it's either full magnesium or lots of magnesium in there. And if it doesn't really do anything at all, we know it's aluminium. Yeah, not much going on there, other than, I don't know if you can hear that, but we got a two-legged 35-pound wolf going around the house. So that is some gnarly grease, but it is not, it's actually not oxidized, it's not cooked, because it doesn't stink. Of course, the grease, high sulfur, especially in this old stuff, sulfur compounds are really good at extreme pressure lubrication. So anytime you would have that and it would cook, it just reeks. Like, you wouldn't believe the stank coming off it. We don't have that, so it's just old, but it's still nice and lubricitous. Now, here's a feature you don't see anymore. Little felt shock absorbers. Now, on the back of the rotor, the motor rotor, sometimes you have a Buna N condom, which is a butylene, nitrile butylene rubber compound. That's what O-rings are made of. And that's essentially just a shock absorber. But instead here, we don't have that. Probably. I don't know if that type of O-ring material would have been invented then, or it would have been state of the art. So here we go, felt, which is an animal fiber that's been carded and then compressed together. Very interesting. That's pretty much what it would have looked like right from the factory. Here's the one on the back of the motor rotor. Very cute. More than likely rabbit hair felt, which is a nice fine fluffy fur and very cheap. It's everybody's favorite part, intermission. Now, I love hard work. In fact, I could watch it all day. Here's a channel I humbly suggest you check out. It's got super tight edits, no fluff, interesting projects. There's a link in the doobly-doo and a card up in the corner. On second thought, yeah, no, I'm full of shit. That's got to be wool. Look at the color of her. So that would be sheep felt there. And as we can see, the tool chassis is grounded. That's completely different than modern double insulated tools. They're just plastic body and then they're not grounded at all. And this is a cute little switch. You see here, Underwriters Laboratory listed switch, Lucerne, USA. And this predates any kind of transistors. Oh, this would just be contacts, snap action contacts. Nice beefy snap action, even 75 years later. And of course, we have the trigger lock on there. What for riding this into a low Earth orbit. Now this is a 120 volt tool, so this contact just makes or breaks the 120 volt hot in your house. And then this goes to the neutral, which of course is the same as the ground, only the ground is not allowed to conduct any electricity except in a fault situation, and the neutral is grounded at the pole. They're the same thing. Only difference is, of course, this on the neutral in your pokey bits is allowed to conduct electricity. Permitted. Now this is cute here. I don't know how I like it, but this is the brush assembly. And this is just real soft black carbon. There's no focus, you mother. That's just a real soft carbon brush. But the way it's affixed, this little teat here just goes in to the nub here, gets preloaded. That's a little bit kind of wonky way to, yeah, non-positive. Not the best. So that, you know, there's always that false nostalgia about old tools being skookum as frig. But this, I wouldn't stake my life on that by any means. And here's the motor. Here's the field windings. Tons and tons of them. Only 2 amps going through there. And yeah, the leavings of handyman past, huntavirus and mouse droppings. Laminated steel, silicon steel core. Of course, they laminate this and then separate these magnetically, or no, electrically from each other using lacquer in order to reduce the eddy currents in there, increases the efficiency and lowers the hysteresis in here. Of course, lower hysteresis equals lower electrical losses, means less heat buildup. And because this big dingle arm here is hanging out, they've gone through the trouble of adding stiffeners, and then of course the fish paper or the mica paper, whatever it is, on there to prevent it shorting out. Hasn't changed much in 75 years now, has it? So this little drill has not had a hard life whatsoever. You can see here the connections at the back aren't epoxied. Of course, they probably wouldn't have had epoxy back then. And they normally epoxy these now in good tools to prevent the wire from breaking off the commutator bar. This is how the electricity gets in through the brush and wipes past, and then the AC gets, well, it gets commutated into, into this thing so that it's spinning things. You can see the fan here, the cooling fan. Of course, this would also be a thermoset plastic in modern tools, but you can see this is just sheet metal. It's been pressed in a circle and then sheared and then jigged to bend these up to the proper angulation. What's interesting though is in the catalog cut that I showed earlier, it showed that this had all ball bearings, and these are oil-like bushings. So this is a sintered bronze bushing and then impregnated with oil, and it's still quite, yeah, it works good and it's not worn right out. Now, we saw these bushings, and I disparaged these bushings in the Festering Stool $1,000 rail saw. But, yeah, well, it worked for this thing, and it's 75 years old. Was I hasty in my condemnation of the Festool? No, I wasn't, because actually people got back to me and said, yeah, that inboard bushing is what craps out. Link in the doobly-doo. And here's the rotor pinion. No wear at all on it. Hardened. Well, let's check. Yeah, reasonably hard pinion gear there. And this would have been hobbed, machined in a gear cutter. And that's the extent of the gearbox. Essentially is the pinion and the bowl gear. That's a helical cut. So this would have had some radial action going forward. And this is not reversible. I don't know. It's not reversible. It's forward only. Now, because this isn't a spur cut just straight across, it's a helical cut. It's got a, you can see the angulation on there. Necessarily, because it's on an angle, it's like a wedge. That means when this turns, it wants to push it out forward, which is odd, because if you just cut this the other direction, it would push backwards up against this bearing here. And this bearing, of course, is in order to take up the axial thrust from actual drilling. So this is an odd design feature that they would, when it's free running, it would shoot out that way. And then when you know, the force would all be on here from the windage. Basically, if you just cut this the opposite hand, you wouldn't even need to worry about any wear on this face, because it would all be against this face, even if it's in idle or if it's actually drilling. Little maybe error of omission there. Easy for me to say, armchair quarterback from the future. We're just going to see what the gear reduction is here. So we'll just mark this. So that one's straight up and down. Nope, they're on to me. 6, 7, 8. Only 8 to 1. That means this is turning extremely slowly. If the no load speed at the chuck is 22,000 ripms times 8, 16,000. In tools nowadays we see 22,000, 25,000 ripms. That also means, however, that even for just the 1/4 inch chuck, this would be reasonably torquey. And you can see that in the specs where it says drilling. Well, you'd need the oddest twist drill in history, but it can drill 1/2 inch holes in wood. And, you know, wood is pretty grabby. Now here's the Arbor shaft upon which the Jacob's chuck gets affixed. And we can see here we have the same oil-like bushings. Same on top side and bottom side. But also has hardened raceway and caged roller bearing. What for taking up the 200, well, back in the day, 150-pound gorilla. People are bigger nowadays, continually growing on account of better food, of course, better health care, all that stuff. Anyway, that's to take up the 150-pound gorilla, reefing on that. And of course, this flange is just to take up the axial thrust from this turning forwards. See, that ends up being like a wedge. Boink! Now, I don't see any reason at all why this would fail to chooch. So we're going to go ahead and put this back together. I don't know the state of the trigger switch, but of course, it's just off or on, and it is robust as frig. Oh, I got a feeling when we stick the pokey bits in the pokey bit receptacle, the thing is going to run like a top. Just about to plug her in. Check this out. OG leather strap for the key. Still intact. So obviously this hasn't had a hard life. And if you look, I didn't, during my brush rant there, I didn't mention, I forgot to, I neglected to. The brush holders are Bakelite, newfangled Bakelite plastic, of course, high temperature resist, but junk, total junk. The brush holders would not last. Not worth a pinch. Okay, let's see here. Contact. Well, we'll plug her in, see if we get any sparkage. The lights are still on. That's a good sign. Here we go. Oop. Oh, Jesus. Well, that's terrible. We have high resistance somewhere. That is not 2,000 ripms. What's going on? But she is definitely getting some juice. Yeah, smell that. Burning hantavirus. Okay, I think I found the problem. Yeah, that would be an assembly problem. Far too much sticktivity in the bearings. I must have cocked something up. I'll take her A part, give her another try. Now we got our A part once again for the second time. Have a look here. These brush holders, just plastic, and no regard given for UV at all. So ultraviolet, of course, from the arcing and the sparking out of the commutator, that would just chew this right to rat shit. Even the wires, I mean, yeah. So this is definitely not an industrial drill. This is a home gamer drill, and it hasn't seen much use. Also, smell. You can see that this switch needs to be very robust because all of the action from your finger is taken up by the switch mechanism itself, the slide in the switch. In modern drills, all the casing, there's slides and all sorts of stuff in order to reduce the cost of this switch to make it less robust as rinky-dink as possible, and then all the slides go into the enclosure, and that's what takes up the thrust. So that's a hell of a switch. Now we can see when I don't have the case on, she Ho Chi Minh's right good and proper. Then when I put the case on, it tightens right up. So I must have cocked something. I can't see for the life of me what though. Pretty much tried nothing and all out of ideas, so we'll just go ahead and put this back on, and maybe that fixed her. Okay, well, I got these pretty much just barely hanging on by a blonde one, and we'll give her a try. That's probably why this drill never got any use. Something is bent in here, and as soon as you tighten down the case, it clamps it down. You get no torque out of her. Let's give her a go. There we go. Well, let's go ahead and tighten that down while it's running and see what happens here. Yeah. Acts like a brake, this top one. Whoa, stinky. Lord Jesus. Don't let anybody at the Milwaukee marketing wank department know about that. They'll be adding it into new drills and charging us for the pleasure. A lot better now. We introduced some sloppage. First time tight, second time alright. 1764. That's about 8 millimeters for you continental types. Let's give her a go. Oh, doesn't work when you don't plug her in. Oh, you got a bad case of the speed wobbles. Oh yeah. Feels like I'm drilling sideways. Yeah, good enough. Okay, oh yeah. She got a fair speed wobble to her. Okay, that's her. False nostalgia, busted. Thanks a lot for watching. Keep your dick in a vice. And just for tits and tickles, we're going to see here, maybe if you'd focus. Fuck! There we go. Thank you. Voice activation, something to be said for it. There's a magnesium casting, and you see it's like alien blood as soon as any kind of acid hits it. That's how we can tell if it's a magnesium casting or aluminum casting. So, this magnesium casting will not be going into the scrap bin on account of, I don't want to burn my house down. Magnesium is flammable, which of course for you metric types is inflammable. You hear that? I do too. It's the ambulance going to get the keyboard warriors from the future. Man, but that was powdered. There we go. Magnesium. Here we go. Oh yeah, there we go. Look at this. Having a wee fag there. Painting something up. Very nice. Very nice. You wouldn't see that in a magazine nowadays. For the love of Jesus, somebody think of the chillins. Of course, most of the fun in the poking around is seeing the advertisements. Check it out. Portable cable. All magnesium or aluminum. A 66. And 39 bucks. What that? Oh, yeah, that's say 250 American pesos buying power now. Let's see, 40. Let's just check that. I could be wrong. 327. Wow, that is an expensive saw. But if your father had the foreskin to buy that, you likely still have it. Oh, here's a good one. Skilled machinists prefer South Bend. South Bend lathe. The 16-inch lathes start at 2,500 FOB. FOB meaning, of course, free on board. They would put it on a truck and you would have to pay for the shipping. Right from South Bend, Indiana. That is like $20,000 in nowadays money. Wow. Considering you can buy these, well, actually these are still in high demand, but say you throw down a kilobuck on that, you're still getting one hell of a deal. One you really can't beat with a stick.